Microsoft permanently closing all of its retail stores, particularly the subsidiaries that are Microsoft locations in New York, London, Sydney, Australia, and Redmond, Virginia, I'm assuming, will be turned into experience centers. Now, the experience centers, those are technically a little bit different. I guess Microsoft essentially has been trying to duplicate what Apple has been successfully doing for a while with the Apple stores, and I guess it hasn't really been succeeding for them. I mean, it definitely has it. They don't have a
The
phone or anything.
indoctrination ain't as strong as Apple's, man. Like
Yeah,
Apple got
yeah,
that special that sauce that
yeah,
Microsoft
yeah.
don't have.
Yeah, they never had a Steve Jobs. I mean, their Steve Jobs was Bill Gates, and he not the same. I mean, like they were trying to build that type of rapport with their customer base, with their clientele base, and build out these Microsoft Windows centers essentially that have like Windows computers everywhere, and the Xbox, and particularly Xbox. A lot of people wanted to have the Xbox there because that's the entertainment part of Microsoft, where they can show off all the fun and actually get somebody to spend money on luxury items, not even thinking. But with COVID happening, it furthered the idea that they don't need this stuff because it's not successful, because it already wasn't making a lot of people come in there. Nobody was really going into the stores and the storefronts at all. And then with COVID happening, the only thing you ever see happening on there is particularly, with these protests and stuff like that. The protest was normal stuff happening, but then, you had rioters that were inside with the protests deciding to go ahead and, ransack a Microsoft store or Apple store here and there. And they getting bad publicity. They not making any money off the stores. The stores is just a waste of money to what their core business is anyway, which is now the cloud. So for them to they don't have anything to sell in a retail store. They don't really sell direct products to people. They sell software and services now. So it's no real part for them to have it. They got the surface. So now they really all right, we're going to turn this into an experience location. We're going to turn this into a place where you get to feel what it's like to have Microsoft as a part of your life. So in that case, you don't necessarily have to buy anything from there. You can just come here and see what some of the stuff is like. They've been selling. They were trying to sell the Office 365. I think they talked about turning Office 365 into Microsoft 365 so that they can sell it as a life product. I mean, they don't want to just have it be productivity. They want the stuff to be life products. Mm-hmm. I mean, so what do you think about that?
I mean, I think
life
that
service.
It's something that I think it's a good way to try to do business, because it's so. I see where when I hear things like this, I think it's being affected by just the climate of honestly what Amazon has achieved. So a lot of even with what Apple has going on, because they've been successful at that type of that blueprint, if you will, of having it more of just like what Apple does that Microsoft failed at. But when you have like Amazon, where it comes on the scene, it doesn't really have a store like that. Thing is just they just have more. And although they don't really have I haven't come across an Amazon laptop yet per se, but just based on them being within the tech space, they sharing some type of space in the way that they run their business. I think that trying to find a way to cut costs and then give an experience that will brand themselves as something different while being able to see how they can make more, get more business online, is really what the ultimate aim is. A lot of the things they may be saying on top is kind of like pish posh to me. Like when I hear stuff when I hear permanently closing stores, I automatically think cut costs. It's not, because what do they really, even with the ones they just recently opened up, I think it was in Sydney. I think where was it in here? They either opened it in Sydney or London, but they opened one up. But it's again, what's happening with what's going on within the world right now, and of course they don't try to say it's by COVID, but a lot of things business has slowed down. Even for $1 trillion businesses have slowed down. They're just taking a look at what could they do differently. And I think kind of flipping it into a way where you can go there and get an experience for like all of what Microsoft has to offer, kind of like for like brand awareness, almost like give like an amusement park feel. And I know it's not an amusement park, but having like where it's just purely entertainment is something that could really do. It will do well for the brand. Honestly, that's how I. So I see down here. It says it's like what you're saying. It's like the source of knowledge. Microsoft retail operations told Reg that this plan was originally in place for the following year, but it was accelerated by COVID-19. And it's talking about everything that's going on with like the new system they got coming out. I don't know what. By the way, are you going to get the Xbox or are you going to get the PlayStation?
I'm still getting PlayStation.
You get a PlayStation? Yeah. I mean, but some folk, it's not an either or. They getting both. I ain't got.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't care about either or. Like Xbox, Xbox hasn't sold me. Like I get the whole Game Pass and everything synonymous to your computer lifestyle and all that. I solely play consoles because I separate my gaming from my PC work, because I work in the PC industry. I work in the technology industry. So when I use my computers, I like to use my computers for computing. And like, even if I was to get into software development for games, I would like to keep the development on a PC and not really concern myself with trying to make something for a PC. I would definitely be making my stuff for a console or for a mobile device or some other handheld, some other dedicated system. I mean, and I'm kind of, I mean, that's, I don't know, that the dedicated platform is sort of the same way that Apple runs their business model, and that's just the way that it works. It works pretty well. I don't see myself jumping over to Microsoft for anything except for access to more Sony stuff, personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to speak to that, man, I think Microsoft has a good. So also in an article it said that because a lot of their stores are like, I'm paraphrasing here, a lot of their stores are in malls, so them closing down doesn't look like something out of the ordinary because stores be moved around all this stuff all the time. It's not really going to hurt the brand by them closing things down. They kind of have their own way of, I guess, their indoctrination, like we're saying with the whole Xbox thing. But yeah, I think that the idea of them closing some things down, they kind of cautious to reopen it and everything, is actually may prove to be something that's good for them rather than like, it's not like a negative, it's not like a red flag for me. Like when I hear, like if it was something where, a bunch of big Kmart stores closing down, like yeah, of course, that's something where you're like, what's going on, a value city. But at Microsoft, no, they have too many, they have too much depth within our society especially when it comes to government, for them to just be taken completely out of business because they had to shut a couple of retail stores down. This, that, that.
Yeah, I mean they're not in the retail business. I mean they basically are in the business of keeping other businesses alive.
There you go.
Like so, they're more B2B than anything when it comes to business to consumer stuff. It's mostly services, except for occasional people that buy Surface tablets and the one all-in-one that they seem to have, and then Xboxes, bunch of Xboxes. Like they don't really have much to sell, but they have an experience to sell. If you want OneDrive and like say you want cloud storage and all your stuff in the cloud, and you want to keep all your documents up there, all your games up there, all your music and movies in the cloud, and they got that experience. And that's what they really trying to push. They trying to push the Microsoft experience.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I think it's something that, yeah, that they're with them having to kind of lean into that more, they're gonna do just fine.
Yeah. I mean, and going to this next article, like, software is where they're at. I mean, basically they stopped this Microsoft, it's microcomputer software. That's basically all Microsoft is for us. So like,
take us back, man. That's what it
is. I mean, so like their new platform that they're doing is, I mean, it's in the cloud. This whole coming up with Office 365, doing that on a web-based platform. And now they have this new article, which is about Microsoft's new Fluid Office documents, which is very similar to Google Docs, but on steroids. They're basically just trying to further push the agenda of having things stored in the cloud and having people sign up for their ecosystem. They're trying to build as much of an ecosystem around cloud services as possible so that you can build a lifestyle around using their products. And part of that is, like with this article, is making their stuff better. And Microsoft Office is actually getting a lot better now that it's in the cloud. Like, one of the things that I hated from Microsoft for so long is that Microsoft Office never changed in all those years, like from 95 and 97 and 2000, 2003, all these different versions of Microsoft Office, and it never changed. It was just new. It was just a new release, and everybody had to get the new release so that y'all can email documents to each other. And like, it really didn't make no sense to me about how Office really got to be so heavy. Besides, for business to business purposes, I always felt like there was an alternative with with Office, well, Open Office. I used to be one of the few people that used to use Open Office until Google Docs came out and Google Drive. And now that Microsoft has decided to take their stuff from just being a standalone install on somebody's computer of Microsoft Office to being Office 365, where it's in the cloud and you have a website you go to and you sign in. Now they can actually do better development on things because they're not programming to all these different type of computers. They just program into their browser. They program into to Edge, which is Microsoft Chrome. I mean, so like now that they have Edge and now that they're building on that platform, they're able to run better applications in JavaScript. And one of those better applications is this integrated version of Office now. So instead of having a document that is you have a Microsoft Word document and having a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and having a PowerPoint document. Now they have one document where you can fuse all of those three together, which is pretty dope. It's pretty dope. It's something that Google has been doing in various ways for a long time, with Google Docs, where you can take parts of it, like there's a Google Forms section where you can create forms, and then you can integrate those forms into the document itself. Now they're starting to implement that stuff into Office 365 and included with Outlook, because all this stuff works with Outlook too. So instead of you having to open up a whole new document to create a document and then send that to through an email, you can literally create your document in the email.
Right.
Like, you just create your document in the email, just get it out of the way. Like,
that sound tight.
they're improving on things that you can do. Instead of having us open up multiple tabs, open up multiple windows, you work in this one space. And Microsoft, Google is planning on doing something similar. They're going to release something in the next couple of weeks where they're integrating chat and Google Docs into Gmail. So you just have this one platform to be able to do all your productivity. But Microsoft is obviously still the leader when it comes to productivity. Yeah. Like, they still number one. They've been number one. It's just Google definitely has been eating their lunch and tearing away at, coming up with new ideas. So like, I like to see how this actually works. But like I said, I'm a Google guy for 90% of the stuff I do. How you feel about it, man?
Yeah,
I know you use Office heavy. So like, in person, I'm not sure. Like, I don't understand. I never really used the online version of Office 365, and it's been a while since I routinely used the desktop version. So I don't know how that transition works.
Yeah, I mean, the benefit that I've had as far as being accustomed to using Microsoft's like cloud software and everything, their whole suite, is that a lot of the jobs I've worked on, like my past couple projects and what I'm working on now, they all use Microsoft 365. So that's kind of like all I really know. You know what I mean? Like, I know, like, I use Google Docs and I use the Google Suite as well. You know what I mean? We actually, this is just how we doing what we're doing. But we use that. But I mean, I don't, it personally, I think they both have its pluses and minuses, like, for me. So I say personally, like, being that I've been using Microsoft for so long, I know all, a lot of the hot keys, the shortcut keys and stuff like that to get things done that tends to remain the same. It's just there. Like even like with the tools and even the keys that we use for Microsoft is like a part of this, like the whole the frame. Any if I go into the typical like software that you won't think Microsoft has its hands in, they use the I forgot what it's called, the C#, the .NET framework, where even the hotkeys that Microsoft has for its documents, you can find them in other applications you use as well. So I think it's something where they have, because they're microcomputer software, right? They've kind of embedded a lot of their culture just into computing itself. So when it comes to stuff like them coming up with a new them coming up with some new software, right? Some new plugin, if you will, for something like this. It's only but a matter of time that I think the culture becomes accustomed to it, because again, like what we said in the previous article, a lot of what they do is kind of embedded in keeping businesses alive, right? So if you're going to find somewhere, I can just envision that somehow down the line, I'm going to be using the same feature that's in the email that we're gonna have to do an upgrade on or something like that, and now we have this new functionality that's available to us. So I think it's, as far as if I'm measuring it personally, it's a personal preference. I would still use Microsoft 365, the full suite and everything they have over Google, just because I'm used to it. As far as how the consumer will take to it, it's a hit or miss.
Do you have because like I said, because there's the desktop version and then the online version, do you ever go through any type of fluctuation or confusion and like which one is the one I should be using at the time? Like, should I just go on to the website, or should I go to open up the window on my computer type thing?
Well, like I typically, so the one I use is typically on the desktop, right? But because it's the cloud services, things that, so I don't find it. I mean, I use the ones online. Like we have the documentation where, of course, if we are like sharing or we're say for instance, me and my teammate, we may be doing some type of code review or something. Not to get too techie for anybody out there, we may be doing some type of code review or something. We're in two different locations. Of course, we'll use like the online services, and it's pretty. Again, it has the same hotkeys, it has the same feel. So yeah. I mean, I don't really have a preference per se. I think it's I don't really look at it as this is Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel on the desktop or Microsoft Excel online. It's just Microsoft Excel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's the thing. So it's like,
and that's been the transition. That's been the thing that I've been kind of iffy with, like because I know I know ultimately their goal is to transition everything to being online, and like the confusion always been like, how do you transition all the people over? Like that's the reason that they still had a desktop version, is because so many people have been using the desktop version that they can't just switch over. Like they gotta groom people into switching over. I mean, so like the just having to deal with both of those, like just trying to figure out how to deal with it. Like for me, I switched over to Office 360, to Google Docs, because I just knew I wasn't going to pay for Office. I didn't never want to pay for it. As soon as I found out that was free, Google Docs was free, I just started using Google Docs, and now I pay for Google Docs because they've built up so much into it that I find it useful to actually pay for. But like, I know that it's online, so that's always been the thing. And like, it's really about the collaboration features for me. That's probably the main thing of why they create Office 365, is because it's for collaboration, being able to communicate with people online and immediately share stuff. Like that transition is the only thing I never really wanted to pick up on the 365, because I already had what I had with Google Docs. So I didn't know what that world was like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of those, because it's just based off of the lifestyle, right? And now I think that a lot of people may be used to using Microsoft, because it's like, people, like a lot of people don't know that they are different, what you call Microsoft Word, word processors out there, right? Like they have different
Yeah.
software, but because it's just, again, with Microsoft, it's just so embedded in society. Like, I think many people won't. But what I'm getting at is, I think it won't be that hard of a transition for folk. Like, if they do like what they have, the Lego, it's not going to be difficult for them to transition. And I think that it's actually akin to, like, more people are just used to Microsoft. I don't really think a lot of people, the average person that is using some like a Google product, this is only using Google search. I don't think the average person is using the Google Suite. Google Suite is more so catered to, I think, people who have, they may be accustomed to it, but it's not like I for example, I'm actually writing a book right now with one of my friends, and I tried to ask him, like, are you familiar with Google Docs? And he was like, no. He's 29. He's never really used it. Like, so, that just kind of speaks to, you have to actually, I think the Google Suite, although Google is Google, it's still niche, whereas though Microsoft is more standard.
It's the first one. It's the first one. So they get all the standards because of the first one. I'm just happy that they're transitioning to online because I mean it makes that capability a lot easier.
Right.
Because like once your software is online, you can connect it to other software that's online. So like what happens with things that are online with Google Docs and like Sheets and stuff like that. If I have a website that I'm running and I want to collect analytics reports and then transition those analytics to a spreadsheet without ever having to download anything, I literally can just open it up and have my spreadsheet. Whereas Google Docs, I mean, the old school way of Microsoft Office, you always had to download something,
download the joint,
pull it up. And with the transition of it being online, everything will be online with API and stuff like that. It'll make a smoother transition so that things could communicate better. And that old school way just has to die out, but that's not going to die out without the people letting go. So like Office 365, whether it's Office 365 or Google Docs, that's the cool part. The dead part is the stuff of installing your Office product. Like I hate people that just use the old one because it's like you just slowing it up.
Right.
Get online. Use the online.
Get on board, yo.
Yeah, like whether it's Office or Google, just use the online version. That's what be killing me. But yeah, man, that's a personal rant. All y'all listen to that personal rant. Appreciate that.